Was there a moment that made you go, nah, I can't stay quiet anymore?
I'm highly offended by the actions of this administration. No longer can we sit by idly and let our livelihoods be stripped away from us, let our blackness be again criminalized. And, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere.
Do you think young people are more politically aware now or just more online?
Viewing, right, depending on what algorithm they're on, will really influence the type of content that is being pushed to them. So, you can be looking at puppies and then, see a starving child in, Palestinian child of Israel in your next video. So it really just depends.
If you had 24 hours to rewrite one law, no Congress, no red, what would you change today?
It would be a series of litigation or legislation, but the overall basis of it would be rooted in protecting Black people in America.
I think a lot of churches avoid politics. Why do you think that is?
Money. I think that the church plays politics. I don't know if it has ever separated.
Who inspires you, politically or personally, and why?
Yeah, I'd say Malcolm X has had a big influence on my political views.
How would you balance faith with the messiness of politics without losing either?
You can't separate the two, but you have to understand your faith should inform your politics. There is a valid argument that we have lost a lot of civility within our society and the ability to have tolerance and hear the other side, right? The side that you may not necessarily agree or understand.
What's the biggest issue you see in the current education system?
Oh, so many. I like the idea of allowing communities, allowing religious institutions, allowing educators, right? Like me, the ability to create programming, create curriculum, create school certificates, micro certificates in which people can go gain these skills that are actually up to the things that they want and need to do in life. Not that I can seek out on my own if I'm interested in, but I'm not necessarily not be able to move forward in a grade because I can't memorize all the presidents from, the 1940s.
Be honest. Do you think school is preparing people for real life?
You think about Aristotle, you think about Socrates, right? These renowned philosophers and come up with all these base type of theologies that we follow. What were they doing though? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They were just sitting around thinking.
Was there a moment that made you go, nah, I can't stay quiet anymore?
I can't think of a specific moment, but as a Black man, as a father, as an educator, I'm highly offended by the actions of this administration. And no longer can we sit by idly and let our livelihoods be stripped away from us, let our blackness be again criminalized. And, just injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And I think that people need a lot of direction right now. They need guidance, they need support, they just don't know what to do. So I thought it was about time that I use my platform and my expertise to offer that support.
Do you think young people are more politically aware now or just more online?
I would say both. They're online, but because of being online, they become more politically engaged because a lot of propaganda that they're viewing, right? Depending on what algorithm they're on, will really influence the type of content that is being pushed to them. So, you could be looking at puppies and then, see a starving child in, Palestinian child of Israel in your next video. So it really just depends. So yeah, I would say they are more exposed to it, which is resulting in more engagement.
If you had 24 hours to rewrite one law, no Congress, no red tape, what would you change today? Especially with everything going on in the world.
Yeah, no, I know that the answer to that question. So it would be a series of litigation or legislation, but the overall basis of it would be rooted in protecting Black people in America. So, for example, right, one law I would pass is that you cannot portray African Americans as criminals, thugs, prostitutes, drug addicts in media, on music, on publications. If you do, you can be sued. If we look at historical context of Black people portrayed in media, right? Even thinking about all the way at the beginning and when film started, right? They're portrayed as the criminal, as the over aggressor. Thinking about black men, in dresses, and the only way that they can move up, right, in Hollywood and film is taking on these the word I'm looking for is complimenting, right? These non-complimenting roles. So that'd be, one piece of a law. And what this is rooted in is, I think that a lot of legislation and policy recommendations, right? Even if we think about reparations, this would be tied into that, right? One of my other pieces of legislation would be reparations. These laws need to be written and passed in a way that they can't be overturned, right? I think about affirmative action. I think about Roe v. Wade, right? Laws that were written for the time, but not necessarily written and passed in a way that they couldn't be overturned. And we've seen that those have been overturned due to political influence. So, if I had one chance to change a law or write a law, that's where I'd start.
I think a lot of churches avoid politics. Why do you think that is?
Money. I think that historically, the church and politics have been one and the same, interchangeable, right? But as the neo-colonialistic ideology of separation and of church and state, which is somewhat a myth, right? We call ourselves a Christian nation and we have a Pledge of Allegiance. They say prayers within government spaces. So, I think that the church plays politics. I don't know if it has ever separated, but in terms of speaking out, they have major donors, they have major contributors, just like any organization. And, when there's dissent or misalignment, right, that can impact those funds. And, they have congregations, they have institutions, they have systems that they have to support and take care of. So, bringing negative attention to their institution and their systems may not be in their best interest. So I think a lot of times that's why they, just like the academy, what we've seen in terms of the attack with DEI and the attack on specific higher institutions. I'm thinking of Harvard, right? I'm thinking of Columbia. They're in litigation with the government. A lot of other institutions haven't necessarily spoke up or spoke out against these attacks. It's more been, in my eyes, a coercion of the government of, if you fall in line with us and play ball by our rules, you can be on the team. You'll make sure your programs are funded. You'll continue to receive your grants, and you'll be able to run the programs that you run. But if you dissent or disagree, speak out against what we're trying to do, our agenda, you're on the naughty list, and we're going to come after you. And that is coercion at its finest. So I think institutions such as the church, religion, as well as education, healthcare, they all kind of fall at the whims, right, of their funders.
I would have to agree. I also think that things are very conditional when it's supposed to be freedom of decision for all. Who inspires you? Politically or personally, and why?
Yeah, you catching me with these questions. These are good questions. I don't know if anybody has inspired me politically. I would say Malcolm X has had a big influence on my political views, my ideologies around. So in my eyes, most Black Americans are conservatives. And when I say that, I mean that we have faith, we value family. Typically, we live somewhat in a conservative financially. We try to. It's something that is important to us. So with those things in mind, but we also care about social systems and the social net. We care about oppression. We care about hunger, right? We care about genocide and the mistreatment of the marginalized and underrepresented. So I think that, you can have a conservative rooting, but also a liberal outlook, right? And that's really been shaped for me by Malcolm X, as well as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I think he gets a lot of negative perspective on the way he delivers, right? He's a powerful man, powerful speaker. And you can take that whichever way you want. But the way that I have received it is he's rooted in his beliefs and he's not easily swayed, right? But at the same time, he's open to learning. So I think personally, the Black Muslim movement has had a significant impact. Just if we look at the historical context in the way that Black people, African Americans, have been treated in this country, and even my own personal experiences, right? Not every Black person, just because we're Black, doesn't mean we have the same experiences. So to answer your question, yeah, I think those would be the two.
That's a very nice answer. That brings me into my next question. How would you balance faith with the messiness of politics without losing either?
Well, I think that's where people put themselves in a debacle. And if you know what a debacle is, if you play a little chess, that's that rock and a hard place. Either way, it's something you're going to lose, right? So you can't separate the two, okay? Politics and religion, again, what you had to understand, your faith should inform your politics, okay? A lot of us call ourselves Christians or Muslims or believers, right? But if you really read your scripture in your book, and you take the historical teachings and try to apply them, right, to some of the reoccurring things, right? They're things that you'll notice that continue to happen even in our current day. But you take those notions and those ideologies and those teachings, and you're able to draw concepts from them and be able to apply those to your life. That should inform the way that you view politics, the way that you advocate for whatever you believe in, the way that you engage civilly, right? I think anything can be taken to the extreme, right? But there is a valid argument that we have lost a lot of civility within our society and the ability to have tolerance and hear the other side, right? The side that you may not necessarily agree or understand. A lot of us have put up our blockers. So it's important that you don't separate the two. Use your faith, use your belief to inform the way that you vote, to inform the way that the dollars that you put behind companies, systems, individuals, right? That's all going to have impact on the way that our politics are shaped.
What's the biggest issue you see in the current education system?
Oh, so many. But I think that, I think there is a valid argument for school choice. And when I say that, I think that education needs to align better with the cultural community in which that it intends to serve. Example, we have students from indigenous cultures right here. We're in the Chicagoland area. We're pretty close to the Great Lakes. So, Michigan, Wisconsin is not too far. So we have a lot of indigenous communities. And part of their livelihood is knowing when to sow and harvest grain, right? Being able to track the weather as well as the lake effects and the way that animals migrate, various different more natural, right, indigenous type of systems that, if you go to a public school are not necessarily taught, right? So I think that education as a whole really needs to take a look at being able to support, because it takes funding, and I like the idea of allowing communities, allowing religious institutions, allowing educators, right? Like me, the ability to create programming, create curriculum, create schools, certificates, micro certificates in which people can go gain these skills that are actually applicable to the things that they want to do and they want and need to do in life, not necessarily just learning U.S. history from 1700 to 1856 just because, right? Yeah, there may be things that I could seek out on my own if I'm interested in, but I'm not necessarily gonna not be able to move forward in a grade because I can't memorize all the presidents from the 1940s. So I think that education as a whole, really philosophically needs to take a look at how are we serving our society and what is deemed as knowledge, what is deemed as knowing, what is deemed as a way of believing, because it is different. It's different for everybody in every community. And I think that would, cause a paradigm shift in where, there's more ability to create more robust innovations. We're not regurgitating the same things that we already know. So
Be honest. Do you think school is preparing people for real life?
there's a big argument, right? Statistically, the value, particularly higher education, is being questioned, right? If you look at the cost of a degree versus the initial amount of money you might make, depending on what industry or career profession that you go into, sometimes it really doesn't make sense, depending on the institution, right? You go to a tier 1 research institution or a Ivy League school, maybe studying a social science, in which you're coming out you've spent $200,000, but you're coming out making 53, depending on where you're at. Of course, there's upward mobility as a professional, but it really does call into question the value, the amount of time, the amount of money, the amount of effort, right, that individuals are putting in. And, I've heard stories of, people with bachelor's, master's, even PhDs, managers at Starbucks, not necessarily, 14 years of their life. They didn't go to 14 years of school to be a manager at Starbucks. So I would say certain industries, and I would, again, lean towards the more professional industries, right? And not to say that the arts are not important. I think that is what creates creation, right? Gives you that imaginative spark. You think about Aristotle, you think about Socrates, right? These renowned philosophers, and they come up with all these base type of theologies that we follow. What were they doing though? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They were sitting around thinking. They had leisure time. So I think, if you have leisure time, right, the ability to imagine, the ability to ponder and to question and to inquire, those are just important tools, skills, and abilities as, you being a mechanic, a computer scientist, whatever, a doctor. So
That's a really good answer. What would you say is one belief that you stand on that might get you canceled, but you refuse to back down from?
one belief I stand on that might get me canceled. One belief I stand on that might get me
Something controversial. Sure.
controversial. I believe that if you was born past 1985, right, and you went to school with diverse people from various backgrounds, no matter where you are, and you have developed into this reptilian, cowardice, racist, bigoted person, even though you played basketball, you ran track, you went swimming, you did Boy Scouts with people from all different backgrounds, but for some reason, whatever that was in the water has now got you believing that these people don't deserve to be here. They're taking your housing, they're taking your jobs, and they're gonna wipe out your race. If that is you, I think you should burn in hell. So it might get me canceled. And I'm speaking directly to a lot of the people that I grew up with, right? I'm disappointed in you. I'm disappointed. How could we play on the same ball team, spend the night at your house, spend the night at my house, right? You white, you Filipino, you Mexican, I'm black, right? All that didn't matter. But all of a sudden, now that you've been fed this propaganda, you forget all that. And you're voting for the orange man. Okay, Conrad Trupovetsky. Okay, so your day is coming. And you can see me whenever you need to see me. So if that gets me canceled, that's what it is. And I'm gonna stand on that. I'm not gonna change or waver from that, because if you know who I'm talking, there's a few of you out there. You know exactly who I'm talking to. We watching. We see you. We know who you are. Okay, go ahead.
That was pretty funny. What's one uncomfortable truth about relationships people don't want to hear?
That your happiness is not dependent on your partner. I done had to tell that to a lot of people that, we place a lot of dependence. And some people are proud of it. Like, oh, it's my job to make my partner happy. If I'm not upping them doing this and that, I'm not doing my job. I mean, that's all fine and good, but honestly, if your partner is not happy with themselves, it's really gonna be hard for them to be engaged in a healthy relationship with you. So if you are not happy with yourself, okay, whether that's financially, whether that's emotionally, whether that is the way you look, your physical, whatever, you're not prepared to be in a relationship player, okay? It's good to have friends. It's good to have people that you care about and depend on and can call on when you need them. But hold the intimacy and the commitment until you are happy with yourself. You are satisfied and fulfilled, right? Because there's going to be instances when that person is not showing up and you can't be dependent on them to show up. Your happiness, your mood, your joy is taken because they're not showing up. So a lot of people aren't prepared to hear that, especially these young people. Like, it takes a little time to learn. It takes a little time to experience. But I'll tell you right now, don't rush it. Don't rush it. Get yourself in a position where you're content and you feel good. And that you can be there, right? You can be fully there for your partner. You want to have a good relationship. You want to be happy, right? You want to have a good relationship. A lot of relationships suffer and struggle because people just aren't ready themselves. They haven't dealt with their trauma. They ain't dealt with their demons. I know a lot of brothers, we'll call them brothers, that ain't never even had their own house in terms of being able to live by themselves. Ever since high school, they live with a different woman. Every time they get in a relationship, they at her house, new house. When they get in a fight, they go to their mama house. Okay. That ain't it. That ain't it. You're not ready. You're not ready. So
I don't think people are ready to hear that until they hit 30. But it's my opinion. What do you think men fear most in relationships? Is it losing control, getting hurt, or being truly seen?
I would say, I don't like those options, but I think men fear most. It's hard because I don't really have fears personally, but from talking to a lot of men, right? They won't say it outright directly, but it all leads back to not being respected.
That would be part of my question, because wouldn't men kind of need control in order to leave?
I think there's a different, in my eyes, there's a difference between being respected and controlled.
Not controlling per se, but a man has to be able to lead.
Yeah.
And for leadership to take place, respect is needed.
And so maybe we're saying the same thing. Like, yeah, I think that men fear losing the respect that they have worked hard to gain. And that's, I think that they work so hard out of that fear, right? They don't want their integrity to be questioned. They don't want their decision making to be questioned. They don't necessarily want to be seen as a person who makes bad decisions and can't show up when need be. So, all that does lead back to, I think, when those things happen, people lose respect for you, right? So, yeah, definitely in a relationship. Another thing people aren't prepared to hear, I think, is men need respect, women need love. We don't necessarily need the same things. And when I say that, your man won't necessarily leave you immediately if you don't love him. He'll work a little bit hard. But if you don't respect him, vice versa. A woman will work, for your respect. But if you don't love her, she's not feeling the love, the protection, right, that she is a priority in your life, then, she'll leave over the disrespect.
Certainly. Sorry. What's something you had to unlearn about love to grow as a person?
Unlearn about love. I think I still struggle with that. I'm still learning, I think that I've been by myself, and I like being by myself. So, opening up, having vulnerability, I think is hard for many men. Because you have to give over some of those feelings, right? Some of that energy, letting loose some of that control. So I would say I'm still learning that. And hopefully, that'll be a positive on the way that I engage with love.
I respect that. That's real. I love the authenticity. That brings me to my next question. Who was the first person to challenge the way that you think? And how did that change you?
Yeah. I had this boss. He was my boss a couple times over. Bob, if you're out there, what's up, brother? But
What's up, Bob?
Bob, yeah. He he had been in the trenches and did what we were doing. So I really always, for me, it's not necessarily a title. It's what can you show me? What have you proven? What have you done to gain that title, right? And he had been in the trenches, so I had a lot of respect for him. And I remember we would have like our one-on-ones. And, we worked in a environment where it was somewhat commission based and, based on a lot of customer interaction or engagement. And you had like daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, and all, you had to develop strategies and stuff. So I always be like, you did it. Like you did it. You were successful. Like, just tell me what to do. I'll do exactly what you did. And I should be able to, work my number too. But he would always challenge me back. He would pull like this reverse psychology stuff. And he'd be like, well, you tell me what you think you should do versus I'm going to tell you what I think you should do. And then he would always like hold me accountable to it. So he'd be like, but you said that you was going to do this. And remember that you said that this is the way that you should do this. And like, as a leader, as, somebody that I went on in my career to manage people, like that changed my perspective in a way to help me think about the way that I manage myself, but also managing other people and helping them reach their goals in the way that they want to versus being told to, right? So yeah, Bob, shout out to Bob, man.
Shout out to Bob. That brings me to my next question. What keeps you grounded when life starts moving too fast? I guess this person wouldn't be Bob.
My dogs and my kids. You have a lot of responsibility. Well, I do. I have a lot of responsibility. I have a lot of people depending on me. I have multiple projects that I'm involved in, like colleagues depending on me, right? You working on a research team, and you all write the manuscript, and you don't write your paragraph on time, right? But all that can be so stressful. And it can also blow your head up. You can start thinking that you know more than you think you know, and you're doing better than you think you're doing. So I think that, my kids always just remind me that this is life. This is real life. This is just another day in reality. And my dogs, without, I might have a bad day, right? I might have a hard conversation. I might get some news that, may make me not in the best of mood. I have to deal with one of the baby mamas, right? But I always know that I got to come home to the dogs and they didn't do anything to me. So I got to remember that, like, I got to show them the same love and affection that they're showing me, right? So, like, that just keeps me grounded and, like, nothing's never too much,
I really like that response. Very heartfelt.
Thanks.
What's something about your past that still influences how you move today?
Something about my past. I've learned so many lessons.
Let's say something that you learned specifically in your mid-20s. Actually, let me take it up a notch. How about 30s? Because I feel like that's usually when the wisdom sticks.
Okay. Don't use your own money. And what I mean by that is leverage your credit. So, a lot of us think that we have to like save up a whole bunch of money to buy a house, to start a business, to do things that, will take a little significant investment, right? But I can tell you that one thing that you can control that will give you access to other people's money is your credit. And I wish I would have learned that in my 20s. Something I did learn in my 30s. That, like I took a $50,000 loss. Cash money. You feel me? We'll talk about that another time. But it taught me that I shouldn't have used my money. All my hard-earned, saved, grinded out money. I could have done what I needed to do, leveraging credit, equity, credit lines. So we'll dive more into those topics, but I think it's extremely important that if you are in your 20s, start to build good credit. Okay, that doesn't necessarily not mean don't just avoiding, because not putting in anything on your credit doesn't build your credit. Okay, things like secured credit cards, things like minor subscriptions that I would say are very manageable, a couple of $100s at a time, into your credit score and your credit history, and you've had a history of good usage. All of that builds up in which you qualify for things that you can actually leverage, right? You need $10,000 to start a business, get your inventory, have your marketing, pay your employees, right? You can put that on a credit card, okay? And then, pay that back as your business starts to come into fruition. So those are things that we'll talk about, but overall, don't use your money, use other people's money.
What do you hope people feel after hearing your voice, whether it be challenged, inspired, awakened, or seen?
Yeah, I hope that you feel seen. We're in a time where particularly the Black voice is again under attack, trying to be silenced, trying to be rewritten into his history. But that is, again, I'm very inspired by Baldwin, and his ability to poetically make you think. So that's what I want people to do when they hear my voice, is think. I want to challenge your beliefs. I want to challenge the way that you think and make you think. As I think a lot of us are caught into the rat race, right? We're caught into just trying to survive, make ends meet. The cost of living is outrageous. Everything is going up. I just got my tax bill for my property yesterday. It went up $1,000. Everything going up but the paycheck, right? So it's just, constant things. But I think it's important, right, that we don't get too far away from the things that ultimately are going to shape our future, our children's future and grandchildren's future. So
Very well. Okay.